Jasmine of Jail's Head, Book 1, Bloodkin, by Kathy Ashford. Chapter 7. Oi. Charlie showed me how to run the bath with the red and blue enamelled taps, and left me to soak while he fiddled with the fire and finished unpacking his boxes. I lay in the huge bath for a good half hour with my eyes closed, enjoying the luxury of the hot water and letting my mind run over the events of the day. Admittedly, I had never travelled much, but the Niathi Quarter was by far the weirdest place I had ever been. The mass of people, the strange things you could buy. Fiona! This place was to be my home for the next 2 years, but it was totally overwhelming. I doubted I could even leave from the front door of the hall without getting lost. So how the hell was I going to survive here? My own home and Jail's Head I knew like the back of my hand. At home I had been the Lord's heir. Here, I was just another kid and completely out of my depths. Even Lalitha, shy, quiet Lalitha, seemed to be more comfortable. Charlie yelled through the door. "You alright in there, Jazz? You haven't fallen asleep and drowned, have you?" No, I'm just getting out now." With much splashing, I roused myself and got out of the bath, drained it, and ran another for Charlie. When I had dried myself, I left the bathroom to him and went to go change. Are you going to wear your other new robe tonight?" he asked before heading in. "What, are we dressing up?" "Well, yeah, sort of. We're going out tonight." When Charlie closed the bathroom door behind him, I went and stood by the fire, enjoying the warmth for a bit. Charlie had put the shopping bag on one of the chairs, and I fished out my wool robe and went to put it on in my bedroom. The dying sun was shining directly in from the west window, illuminating the city and the lake below, and reluctantly I drew the curtain to change, wrapping the towel around my still damp hair. Out in the living room, I pulled out my journals and writing equipment and arranged them on one of the desks. Charlie had finished unpacking his books, and I noticed a new box by the door, addressed to me and stamped with a seal of the Lil Booksellers. That was quick, I thought, pulling it open. Inside were all my textbooks, neatly packed. Charlie had left me plenty of space on one of the bookcases, and I arranged my new texts there. There were books on human and Niathi history, including one wholly dedicated to the events of the Leaving. There was a brief treatise on Niathi culture in the enclaves, as well as a number of books about Hyavan. More surprisingly, there were scientific texts, introductions to physics, chemistry, and biology. There was even a small tome about the history and cultivation of moss, written by one Finiacha O'Dolarenia. Fiona, of all people! I had just finished stacking them away when Charlie finished in the bathroom. "Oh, JJ, you look fancy. Hang on, I'll go get changed." When he emerged from his bedroom, he was wearing not his usual plain black robes, but a much dressier one in a dark wine red. He had pulled his long white hair back with a black velvet ribbon, and he had applied his kohl with much more care than usual. "Ha, Charlie, you scrub up all right. Trying to impress someone, eh?" He ducked his head, embarrassed, but I could see his cheeks crease as he grinned. "Oh, hardly. Just haven't had a chance to wear this old thing much." "Sure." I dried my hair and hung up my towel, dragging my fingers through to get out the worst of the knots. We could hear a commotion in the hallway, and Jimmy poked his head in. "You guys ready to go up? It's almost dinner time." We waved at him and went to follow up to the common room. Charlie touched my arm as we were about to step into the hall. "Jazz, if anyone says anything about Liarthasalian or Laman, don't say anything, okay?" What I possibly could have said about the Assassin's Guild, real or not, I didn't know, so I just nodded at Charlie and we both followed Jimmy and Lalitha up the stairs. In the common room, both the fires were blazing. 3 tables had been pushed together down the side near the kitchen into one long trestle, and the chairs and couches had been grouped around the fire closest to the stairs. We appeared to be the last to arrive. Everyone else all had glasses of wine in their hands and were seated comfortably. Along with us 8 Bloodkin and our mentors, Eve was relaxing with a wizened old Niathi gentleman, and 2 journeymen hovered nervously. One I recognised as Stephen, the other was a baby-faced youth who fiddled with his shoulder-length hair. Eve noticed us enter and waved for us to join her, motioning for Stephen to pour wine for us. The ancient Neathi stood to greet us, his well-known face belying a bearing that was still tall and upright. "Mer Roderick, you might remember Kaiash from his time as a journeyman. Jim, of course, you know." The old man nodded gravely and accepted Charlie's respectful handshake, but made a show of mock exasperation as Jimmy hugged him around the shoulders. "And these are their Bloodkin, Jesseth of Jailshead and Lolitha of Lellisol. This is Mer Roderick, Dean of the Academy." So he was important then. I shook his hand as Charlie had done, and Lolitha wobbled a curtsy. Mer Roderick peered at us closely. "Ah, Jailshead. Excellent wines, yes. And Lellisol. That's that pretty little village up on the lilies, am I right?" Lolitha and I nodded agreement. "Wonderful, wonderful. Welcome to Lil. I hope your time at the Academy will prove fruitful. Please, let us sit and be comfortable. We have no need for formalities here, and my old bones are creaking." He grinned self-deprecatingly and lowered himself gracefully back into his armchair with an apparent lack of creaking. He was certainly the oldest Neathi I had ever come across. His face was lined like a road map, and a smattering of white whiskers spiked his cheeks. On his nose he wore a curious pair of spectacles, the glass tinted dark amber to protect his aging eyes from the light. Stephen poured our wine, and the other journeyman, who Eve introduced as Alan, appeared with a platter of tiny crackers topped with cheese and smoked fish. I looked around at the others as Alan carefully did his rounds with the nibbles. Everyone except Sella was wearing new Neathi-style robes. Dunkel, Samok and Donnick had gone for masculine blues, and Dunkel sported a new pair of spectacles, similar to Mer Roderick's but of clear glass, the slight magnification making his eyes goggle a bit. Telgith, on the other hand, was outrageous in lime green, which clashed spectacularly with his orange hair. He caught my eye and gave me the thumbs up before raising his glass and draining it. Mantley was demure and pale lilac, while Lolitha was still wearing her mint green robe for that afternoon. Everyone paled, however, in comparison to Sella, who shone in sapphire blue silk. Her human-style dress had full skirts that accentuated her tiny waist, and a necklace of blue jewels hung becomingly around her long, graceful neck, drawing the eye to her creamy cleavage, at which I was trying very hard not to stare. When Alan had taken the empty platter back to the kitchen, Eve stood and motioned that we move to be seated at the table. She guided Mer Roderick to the seat of honour at the head of the table, then moved to the other end, leaving the rest of us to manoeuvre for our seats. I ended up somewhere in the middle, sandwiched between Lolitha and Telgith, while Charlie sat opposite, and somehow Sella was beside him. "Do you mind if I sit here?" she asked him, gesturing at the chair and fluttering her long eyelashes. "Oh, please do." He pulled the seat out for her and she smiled at him, pulling out her skirts before settling daintily. To the obvious disappointment of Sanok and Dominic, Emma took the other seat beside her, and the rest of the party found places around us. Conversation at first was a bit stilted, and everyone concentrated on their wine and the first course of seafood chowder and breads that Stephen and Alan served for us, before they hurried down to sit with Eve. Charlie broke the ice by inquiring as to where everyone was from. Even with the length of the table, everyone could hear the conversation. It appeared that the rest of the Bloodkin were blessed with the same sensitive hearing as me. Telgith, I knew, was from Jailshead as well, and Sella was a Lil native. Lellisol, Lolitha's village, was tucked away in the mountains to the north, by the head of the Lys River. Samok and Donnick were both from Ryeholm, a medium-sized town in the foot of the mountains to the east, and had been friends since boyhood. Dunkel was from the small riverside village of Talès, which was just on the other side of the bridge where we had encountered the guards, and Mantley had grown up in the settlement of Nello, which is on the other side of the lake, a short ferry ride away. I was surprised that everyone had come from places not far from Lil, but when I mentioned this, Sella snorted derisively and rolled her eyes. And Charlie looked at her curiously, then explained to me, "There are academies like this in all the 4 capitals. Neathi bloods are educated in the one closer to their homes, to make it easy to visit families and stuff during the holidays." Oh, yes, yes, agreed Mir Roderick from the head of the table. Retaining ties with family is most important. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Lalitha pull a face, but I didn't say anything, not wanting to draw any more attention to my ignorance in front of Sella. Stephen and Alan collected our soup plates for us and replaced them with our main course, roasted meats and vegetables with plenty of gravy. Is this normal? I whispered to Lalitha, not wanting the journeyman to hear. You know, being waited on by Niathi. But Sella heard and waved her hand gracefully at us. Of course. Journeymen make excellent servants. They're awfully obedient. Talgoth, Lalitha and I stared at her dumbfounded. I mean, I had servants at home, of course, but never Niathi. We never treated them as dismissively as she was suggesting. Charlie didn't seem offended, simply shrugging. You do a lot of odd jobs when you're a journeyman, and when you're new out of the Enclave, humans are terrifying. Sella laid her hand on Charlie's arm. Surely you don't find me terrifying? She smiled sweetly at him. He laughed and shrugged again. No, of course not. I adore humans. That's why I'm a mentor. Hearing this, Mantley looked over. Well, why are we so scary then? Charlie smiled gently at her. Oh, you know, growing up we study human society and history and all that. We are taught to be most careful because humans seem to fear what they do not know. Jimmy broke in from the other side of the table. And the human penchant for war and murder seems a bit creepy. Selma cleared her throat delicately and ignored him, but the rest of us were momentarily sobered by that thought. But we're not all like that, cried Manderley, horrified. Of course you're not, sweetling, comforted her mentor Sarah. That's what we discover for ourselves when we're journeymen. I chanced to look down at Stephen and Ellen, who were busy refilling wine glasses and studiously trying to ignore our conversation. It was probably far too close to home for comfort. Sella was still trying to get Charlie's attention. She brushed his hands with hers and asked him to tell us a story from his time as a journeyman. He accepted, telling the others about his short time in the service of the slightly mad master painter Ashlew. I'd love to see it sometime, Sella said, after he told them about the landscape that had been his payment, leaving out the bit about the other painting the Niathi women. We've got a number of his works at home, you know. I realised with a sinking feeling that she was flirting with Charlie. He seemed oblivious to her rather obvious ploys for attention, but I was furious. She shouldn't be flirting with a mentor for a little bit's sake. I mean, I suppose he was kind of handsome in a big grey way, but he wasn't even human. Grumpily, I finished my wine and Ellen hovered over, refilling it for me. Ignoring Sellen, Talgoth turned to Lalitha and me. So, have you guys thought about what you're going to do once we've finished at the academy? The question surprised me, even though it was the second time it had been asked of me in as many days. Lalitha shook her head. I've no idea. I've only had a week to get used to the fact that I'm not going to be stuck in Lillisol for the rest of my life. Jesseth? I honestly don't know. I met an acolyte yesterday who suggested I become a solace, but I'll probably have to go back to Jail's Head to be the Lord. That caught Sella's attention, and she turned her sapphire gaze on me. The Lord? Ha! Oh, yes. Jesseth here is no rule scum like the rest of us, so. His father is the Lord of the entire Jail's Head district. Talgoth answered for me as I flushed under the sudden attention. Gratifying as it was, the glitter in Sella's eyes made her interest in me so transparent I almost wished I hadn't said anything. As if he sensed my discomfort, Charlie intervened. And you, Talgoth, what do you plan to do? Smithing. I thought I was getting pretty good at it before Thomas turned up, but oh man, have you seen these Niathi pens you can get? Lalitha and I nodded. The metalwork on those is insane. You simply cannot make that sort of thing with our old techniques, seeing as I've got this Yavin stuff. He shrugged and grinned. I'm a metal nerd. What can I say? Conversation around the table grew livelier as more bottles of wine were consumed and everyone relaxed. Down the end of the table, Dunkel had taken off his glasses and was showing them to Roderick. You see, sir, back home there was no money for things like this. I was always bumping into stuff, but I guess everyone just assumed I was clumsy. He settled the spectacles back on his nose. No offence, Roderick, sir, but I think they make me look a bit geeky. Roderick just chuckled and leaned back in his chair, hands folded across his belly. None taken, dear boy. I gave in about 30 years ago and had these made for me. If I'm going to live up here, I thought, might as well be comfortable. Coal just wasn't doing the trick. You will have plenty of reading to do over the next couple of years, so you need them. Besides, and he leaned forward as if to confide a secret, I think that make us look rather studious and refined. Which is a nice way to say geeky, sighed Dunkel mournfully. His mentor Richard, a broad-shouldered, athletic beast of a man, ruffled Dunkel's hair with an enormous hand. But you are a geek, Dunk. That's why we adore you. Dunkel made a show of polishing his spectacles, looking both pleased and embarrassed. We ate and drank until our main courses were finished and the journeyman had cleared everything away. They returned from the kitchen with puddings, cherries baked in a light batter and smothered with cream, and tiny glasses which they filled with a sweet dessert wine from small bottles. I recognised the wine straight away as I sipped it. It was made from the late grapes that grew on the particularly fortunate slopes beneath the manor at home. "Oh, man!" exclaimed Talgoth, smacking his lips. "This tastes just like home, eh, Jazz?" I glanced up and caught Sella looking at me appraisingly, and I ducked my head, unnerved by the strength of her gaze. Bloody women, I thought. They find out you're a lord and then they're interested. I wonder if she'd be quite so interested when we found out how reluctant I was to take up the position. And although we had prestige and, power in the district, we hardly had Ashlews hanging everywhere. Down at Maneve's end of the table, Sangok had clearly imbibed too much wine. His bright, handsome face was cupped in his hands as he rested his elbows on the table, and he could barely keep his eyes open. Opposite him, Donnick was peppering the flustered journeyman with slurred questions about life in the enclaves. "Oi, Samo, you all right down there?" called Talgoth. Samo muttered something, but Donnick piped up, he's fine. We're just used to drinking grand old Ryeholm ale." At the mention of Ryeholm ale, Samok roused himself, and they both banged on the table 3 times, yelling, "Oi, oi, oi!" Going to rest his face back in his hands, his elbow slipped off the table, and his head fell forward to rest beside his bowl. Eve sighed at this youthful overindulgence. "Stephen, Ellen, would you be so kind as to fetch coffee for those who want it?" Pitching her voice louder so that everyone could hear, she called, "Dear friends, this has been a lovely party, but it is getting late. We shall have coffee now, and those that want to keep going should perhaps make their way to the Shivering Thistle so some of us might get some rest." All the Neathi, with the exception of Jimmy, took the offered coffee, while us Bloodkin finished off the rest of the wine. James, Samonk's gentle mentor, helped him up from his seat. "I think I'll stay here with him tonight, in case he needs anything. You guys have fun. Next time we'll definitely be on the green." He slung Samonk's arm around his shoulder and half carried the boy out and down the stairs. We could hear their progress, accompanied by much muttering and thumping as they left. Eve and Roderick bade us farewell. Roderick thanked Eve and the journeyman profusely for their hospitality, then turned to us. "It has been a pleasure getting to know you all. You are a very promising bunch, and I look forward to seeing you all in class on Monday." The only indication that the ancient man had been eating and drinking heartily was a slight wobble as he turned to leave. Eve regarded us for a moment before she escorted him out. "Now, have a nice time, and don't be out too late. I have organised a picnic for you tomorrow. And please be considerate when you return. You are all blessed, or cursed, with the hearing of the Neathi blood, so please, quiet." And she followed Roderick down the stairs. Donnick had managed to convince the journeyman to come with us to the tavern, though they looked terrified, and when we had satisfied ourselves that all the bottles of wine were empty, we trooped down the stairs. I ducked into my room to grab my coin purse before catching up to the others who were speaking in loud whispers as we went down the main stairs, through the entrance, and out into the night. End of chapter 7.